Welcome to Sex Talk Radio, a podcast that explores kink and sex through candid and curious conversations. Join me and expert guests in exploring taboos and unpacking what it means to be sex and kink positive. If you haven't checked it out already, please come join me in the Sexy Society. It is an online virtual community for women. You can learn more by going to sextalkradio.com. That is SEGGS talkradio.com. I want to issue a trigger warning for this episode. This episode includes one or more of the following themes: rape, sexual assault, self-harm, and suicide. Lube is important for a lot of different sexual experiences, whether it is solo play or partnered play. It can enhance sensation and just make everything so much more enjoyable. I really love Mochi Melt. Their product is extremely high quality. It smells and tastes delicious, and it looks great on your bedside table. My favorite flavor is Honeydew. 10 out of 10, I recommend and love Mochi Melt. Go to mochimelt.com and use code THEA, THEA, for 15% off of your order. Today's episode of Sex Talk Radio is sponsored by the HUD app. HUD is changing the face of casual dating by offering an alternative and empowered approach to commitment-free dating. Go to hudapp.com/sextalk, that's hudapp.com/SEGGS talk for a week on me. A quick note, the HUD app is available on both iOS and Android and is available to users 18 and over. Well, welcome to Sex Talk Radio, Cole. Thanks for being here. You're definitely somebody that, like, right when I started this, I knew you'd be on eventually. I loved working with you on, like, your business a little bit of just, like, I learned a lot about the process of what it's like for people to come out, like, as I learned kind of your journey and how you support people. And yeah, really excited to talk about all of that today.
I'm so excited. It is kind of cool. We met, I always think of you as somebody I met through ALA, but we actually met through Hannah first.
Yeah, yes.
Because I hired you.
Yes.
Like, before I met you.
I'm glad we got her in first.
Yeah, right. That was the intention. She was like, she has her level 2 this weekend. I'm like, oh, I got to call her now before I meet her there.
Friends. So tell me a little bit about yourself.
So I am 26. I'll soon be 27. I'm an Aries.
All these youngins on the podcast.
I'm a youngin.
So
I know.
old.
I'm an old soul.
Yes,
as I like to say. But I don't know. I think when it comes to old soul, I think, like, some people just live some life experiences in times that they probably shouldn't, and it tends to grow people a bit. But I'm from a really small town.
Oh yeah.
Where
I think I've driven through it.
Yeah, it's gotten a lot better. So if anybody from my small town hears this, it's gotten a lot better. But growing up, it was very a specific way. Like, there wasn't a lot of outside of the box looking people, or just not a lot of things I saw that, like, made me want to be bigger and bolder and more myself. So I actually didn't know I was like that.
No,
so
you
I
were
spent
meant to be bigger and bolder.
Yeah, I spent my whole childhood, teenage years, kind of just, like, shoving myself down to fit in these molds of what I thought. Like,
sure.
High school's
brutal like
high
that.
school's brutal. Yeah, I played a lot of sports, did dance, was in a lot of clubs.
The most.
Looking for, to fit in somewhere, and I never really did, because I wasn't myself, and so I would never fit the mold.
Yeah.
And then being the youngest daughter and having
siblings?
the golden child of a sister. I have 2 older siblings, but as we know, Cassidy is quite the golden child. And yeah, I just never was myself. I look back at pictures of me in my teenage years, and, like,
oh God, it's hard.
You know how we look at how we used to dress?
Yeah.
For me, I'm like, what was I wearing, in the sense of, like, trying to fit in to, like, what people are supposed to wear?
Yeah. I just look at myself and I look so unhappy is what I feel, which is sad.
Yeah, I look very unloved in my younger pictures. And I remember all of the relationships I had in high school and stuff. I cringed with them, because I truly believed at the time that I was, like, had feelings for somebody, or I was, like, loving them. And you just, when you are young and are craving love that much, you think it is what it isn't.
Sure.
And so fast forward, going to college, I went to one of the biggest schools, Arizona State, and pretty much that amount of people was the same exact as my hometown.
Yep.
And just seeing people look so different and be so fun, and
diversity too.
Yeah.
Living in a small town. Yeah.
Yeah. And I knew from a younger age that I liked women. And I never really explored that in my hometown. I got some not great comments when I talked about it in, like, youth group.
Like church youth group?
Yeah.
You're out there saying you're gay in youth
Okay.
group? Or
Well, here's
you're
the
like,
thing.
I think girls are really prettier. Like, what did you say?
So I didn't grow up religious at all. My family's not religious. And so when I was a teenager, like 13, 14, I really wanted to experience it because all my friends were Catholic. They were all doing like confirmation. Yeah.
That's a weird,
so I'd go to youth
weird
group.
High school experience.
Really weird. And I'd actually go with like older high school friends. It was weird. And I remember them talking about one day, it wasn't at youth group, so I won't blame the church, but it was somebody from my youth group. They were just talking about how like they were confirming the patriarchy. And I was like,
but what do you mean?
Young Cole was like, what do you mean? And they were just like, well, I think it's really important because
that like men are in charge.
Yeah. They're like, well, they would say, his opinion, man. He's like, not that men specifically are in charge, but that everybody has their role and their place.
Yeah.
He's like, because the men are closer to God. So the men need to be the man of the household. So the woman goes to the man and the man goes to God. And so in his analogy, I never saw a woman's relationship to God. It's just through the man. And I was like, okay, well, what about two women?
Oh boy.
And I was like,
brave little Cole.
She's always been brave. But I was like, two women. And I was very like, I didn't say like, I'm gay.
Yeah.
Because I was 13.
You're curious.
But I was like, what about two women? Like I think I've seen one gay couple in my hometown. Like, you never know.
Right.
And he was just like, oh, like that's an abomination. And if you believe in that, like you're an abomination. And da da da. And I was like,
and hearing those things at age 13 is like all it takes to like
you're like conformative
to like
years.
Stay in the fucking closet. Yeah.
Stay in the closet for another like 9 years, I think I did.
Like 21, is that right?
Yeah, I am.
You're good.
So I went to college and
party school. Yeah.
Big party school. Hit me hard. A lot of trauma immediately. I was sexually assaulted 2 weeks into my living in my dorm, which is actually how I lost my virginity. So it was super, my relationship to sex, like growing up, I didn't have one. And then in college, like
it was trauma.
Very trauma. And then that whole freshman year was just like, okay, cool. So sex is like something just to do.
Or to be done to you.
To be done to me that I don't enjoy for other people's satisfaction.
Yeah. Did you have to see the person around after?
Yeah, they lived in my dorm. They lived actually on my dorm floor. They were on the football team at my school. I was a Pac-12 college, so it was a big deal.
Yeah.
And I remember going to my RA about it, and I wasn't as confrontational then. Like I was a little bit meeker, and I just remember bringing it up and him just being like, you know what, he's on a D1 scholarship, like,
bro.
Yeah, the whole like
the bravery and courage it takes to tell anybody any of this shit.
Yeah.
I was just talking with the last guest about this. Like it takes so much, but most of us are met with like a dismissiveness or a we're in the wrongness or like, I mean, and that wasn't even that fucking long ago, 6-7 years ago or whatever.
It was
like
8,
what?
Yeah, 7 or 8 years ago. And
he's on the football
so
team, so we probably shouldn't rock the boat, basically.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, I look back at it now. At the time, I was unsure. Then I got really angry about it when I was like really getting into like me being me and like being loud. And now I look back at it, and I'm like, you know what? I do think he was doing the best with what he had at the time. And like, believe me, I went through the like, fuck him.
Yeah.
But it's hard, right? Like RAs are also just students trying to like, live. And
totally.
Yeah, but like after that, I was in an abusive relationship, and all of this just kept happening by men. And I was like, you know what? I've gone long enough. I'm just gonna experiment, and I'm gonna see. And so I had a threesome.
Fun.
I'm just gonna jump right into that.
You've told me for like years. I feel like that's how it starts because you know I really want to have a threesome.
I know you want to have a threesome, and I do recommend. I think they're super fun. I've had a few in my life.
It's really nerve-wracking to just jump straight to the other team.
Yeah, well, the first one, exactly. Yeah. The first one I ever had was actually with two of my friends who had the same like block schedule, so I knew them pretty well in college. And it was literally like just like this girl and this guy that I was homies with, and like we were just friends. We were like, we should just try it.
Like just one day sober?
Well, no, we were we were not sober. Okay. But one day we were just like, let's just try it. And first we thought we were all kidding, and then I was like, no, like let's try it. And so we did. And I just remember, like, do you watch Grey's Anatomy?
No.
So there's this moment where
I'm sure many people watching do.
There's this moment where like Erica Hahn and Callie have sex, and Callie's bisexual. So she's like, oh, okay, cool. Like that was really fun.
Yeah.
But Erica was like, I feel like my whole world has shifted, and like I used to see green bubbles, and now I put glasses on and they're trees and like da da da. And so
Oh my God.
I mean, I don't think I was that far, but my
Yeah.
experience was a lot like that. I was like, whoa,
Whoa.
like this is sex. Like that's what it could mean.
Like, because there's a woman there, or
Yeah, I think
because
so.
it was enjoyable for like.
I think it was a little bit of both. It was enjoyable. It was fun. It was light. It was easy. It was playful. It was like every other time I had sex was so serious and like, ugh.
Yeah,
And like,
and do you feel like because of the trauma and the negative relationship experiences, like it was, do you feel like you were in some fight or flight experiences with sex?
yeah, I would say I was very dissociative with sex. Like I was just kind of
Totally.
there, but not there.
Yeah.
And I remember experiencing my first threesome and like being fully fucking present.
With certain, yes,
Yeah.
good sex, with present sex, it's
Yeah.
like the most present I ever fucking am.
And then I like thought I was in love with the girl that was in the threesome
Yeah.
and like if I
Your
I
whole
needed
world had opened up. And
any
you're like,
other any other like certification that I was gay, fell right in love.
Yeah.
But no, I mean I was good friends with them continuing in college, and like it was just really cool. After that I just kept experimenting, and I quickly learned that I've told you this before too, but like quickly learned that like it's really hard to like experiment and learn as a woman in the queer world because everything that's out there is for the straight male gaze. And I also knew that I wasn't a lesbian, and that in and of itself is like,
well, our society
what
wants
are
to
you?
put us in something.
Yeah, they're like, no, you're
Yeah.
a lesbian. I'm like, no,
Yeah.
well, I date a man. Well, you're straight. And
Right. And it's like depending on who
It's-
you're dating, that's
yeah.
what you're identified as.
yeah, and so right now, because I'm with a woman, I'm super gay, and like I've even had friends like slip and be like, oh, we're lesbians, and I'm like, neither of us are lesbians, but I have dated a man after coming out, and like
Yeah.
I also have
you
that.
identify
So
as pansexual, right?
yeah, I identify as pansexual.
What does that mean for the listener?
So it's very similar to bisexuality, and people struggle with it. But bisexuality, by definition, is attracted to two or more genders, and pansexual is attracted to somebody regardless of gender. So I kind of say I fall in love with like ways of being and like
Yeah.
how somebody makes me feel and the energy. So yeah, of course I have a physical connection. Like my girlfriend's hot, if anybody knows. But like I fell in love with her really slowly, as most people know, because I fell in love with how she made me feel and like how she took care of me. And we went on this trip where she, you know, planned this whole thing. I didn't have to lift a finger, and like picked things I would like to do that were like nice, picked the nicest, cutest, most unique hotel. And I was
dating
just like,
a woman sounds just the aesthetic of dating
Yeah.
a woman, not the aesthetic of dating, the way that women view the world and execute things is just beautiful. And
Yeah.
like
There's
I don't know.
definitely
I struggle with men in that regard.
really, really big pros to dating women. The mistake is that people like,
Yeah,
like straighter women are always like,
we romanticize it.
yeah.
for
And they're like, let's
sure.
date a woman. And then it's like,
Emotional chaos.
they can be super toxic. It's just imagine like the most emotional part of a relationship times two, because you've
And then you're probably
two
like
people.
fucking cycle synced and just, oh God.
cycle synced, especially like before I started doing any emotional intelligence, like personal development work. It's just super toxic, super catty, very passive aggressive at times. But it can also be the most beautiful thing in the world. And I like to think that I'm more homo flexible. Like I think I prefer women to men, but at the same time, like some men like have gotten me energetically. So
Something
Yeah.
that I like that you mentioned and just to share with everyone about how like, you know, you guys really started as friends and then evolved into a relationship. And,
Yeah.
and I think I have this like really deeply ingrained belief that like, it's gotta be this intense fucking crazy love at first sight spark fairy tale bullshit. And I think it's important to remind anybody or women that grew up with that narrative that like magical shit can fucking happen
yeah, I also think that
longer into a friendship.
I don't fully believe in like the love at first sight, big butterfly action. Like I've had it happen before, but I truly think that's like a lot of women who didn't feel safe or
like a
who
fight or
struggle with safety.
flight anxiety
They're like, oh, this
thing.
man like gets me. And I'm like, do you want to feel like that? Or do you want to feel,
I've felt that energy when I've ended up with like avoidant guys.
Yeah.
And it's this like push or pull thing where I feel that butterflies and it's like, it's not healthy.
yeah. And I've definitely had butterflies around somebody who wasn't safe because my wounded child, my wounded self, like wanted that.
Yeah.
And with Jennifer, I mean, we were roommates and it took me like a year and a half to finally be like, okay, let's go on a date.
Wow.
But then when I did fall, I fell within like 2 weeks and we moved in within like 3 months. So yeah.
U-Haul vibes.
Yeah. We definitely U-Hauled very quickly. And now like we have a house and a puppy and we've only been together for a little over a year, but it's like, I already know what ring I'm getting her and vice versa. So it's like, it's definitely U-Haul and just like when you know, right?
And I think like even regardless of sexual orientation, it's like, I just think that there's something important to be said there. A guest of mine was recently talking about, she like focuses on libido coaching, and she was talking about like, you don't want the person you spend the rest of your life with to be such a heightened, like, I want to devour them, this intense, sexual, crazy, chaotic energy, because that can be that kind of tumultuous, unhealthy, toxic relationship. You want the person you spend the rest of your life with to be like above neutral. You obviously want to be attracted to them, but it's more about the emotional safety. It's more about these other elements. And so I find that I have to kind of differentiate the two between like this more like chaotic, toxic guy that maybe I'm going to hook up with from an app and like, wait, okay, who do you want to like spend your life with?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Like, it really depends on what you want. Like, if you just want like fire sex every now and then, like, sure.
Yes, and I've done that. But no, like I want a relationship. That's the era I'm in. And so it's like, okay, how is my nervous system doing?
Yeah. Well, that is another thing. Like with Jennifer, she's made me feel the safest I've ever felt with anybody, right? Like one of the biggest thing, I think of like relationships in my younger 20s and like higher teenagers. And it's everybody worrying about being cheated on or worrying about infidelity. And I like think about Jennifer cheating and I laugh. Like there's, yeah, exactly. There's
just to be safe.
There's no way. And it's feeling so safe with somebody where like, I don't think anybody's ever known me more. I've never known anybody else more. And the sex that we have now, the relationship we have now, the intimacy we have now, because of the way we see each other and love each other is like, I'd take that any day of the week.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, we can shift into having different kinds of sex, but just the connection we have because we chose to do so much fucking work on that relationship and that bond. We have a phenomenal relationship coach, but like that kind of thing it's so safe. And that's what I was really, really calling in was that.
So what did coming out look like for you? Because I know that was a big part of your process.
So, well, I was in college, like I said, when I realized I had the threesome. Then I hooked up with a few more girls. College girls are very experimental. It's very fun. It was great for me. But then I moved to Florida. Okay. Where I met a lot, like I was in somehow like accidentally. No, I dropped out of college, and I just from friends moving to Florida, and I, after like being sexually assaulted and all that, I just like wanted to leave college. Like I wanted to go somewhere else, and so I went as far as possible.
Sure.
And just like wanted to rebuild a little bit there and rebuild myself, and I started bartending and working in a couple jobs where I was just somehow accidentally surrounded by all of these gay people, mostly gay men, but like there's a lot of gay people. And I just remember, I was set up on a couple of dates and I was just hooking up with people. And then I started finding this like queer group of women and I was like, oh, they can teach me, like I can learn. And so like but up to that point, I had just kind of been like questioning it and like curious and maybe possibly like queer. Did you feel
alone? Like did you feel isolated in that?
Yeah, well, I had a lot of gay men in my life, but they were super invalidating to the whole queer female experience
or like the or the option for you to be attracted to multiple genders.
Yeah. Well, it was very either like when I was talking about coming out, they were like, well, you're single. Why would you come out? Like you should come out when you're dating a woman. And I was like,
interesting.
Yeah, and not saying anything against like the experience of gay men, because obviously, like it's a lot harder to be a gay man in public because like women, but like it's so weird because the good part about being a gay woman is that it's more acceptable because men like it, straight men like it. But that's also the bad part of being gay because I couldn't find anything to teach me, any resources because it was all for straight men, even like down to like porn, like anything.
Yeah, it's so hooking up for the guy.
Yeah. Like sex, ridiculously
Google lesbian porn and it's not for lesbians to learn.
Yeah, there's some great ones out there that I found now, but like when you're 19, 20 and I'm like, am I gay? Like Googling, every queer person's Googled the am I gay question.
If you've Googled, are you gay? I've Googled, am I an alcoholic? So,
You know the answer if you have to Google it.
Yeah, if you have to Google it, just fucking suck it up and sleep with women and stop drinking.
There you go. But yeah, so when I lived in Florida, I was realizing I was gay a bit more, and I told my friends, like my whole friend group knew. I went through an emotional intelligence program.
Was there shame associated with?
Totally, yeah. It was still like, hey guys, I think I'm queer. I think I'm bi. I think I didn't know what I was.
Yeah, well, and it can feel validating to have a term, like to have something.
Yeah, not having a label was really, really.
I feel like it's more in the last few years that all the terms have come out and were like very like
becoming more regular too.
Yeah, just more common, and people want to have something that they attach to. But yeah.
Yeah, totally. But I just remember when I first was coming out, I was like, I don't know what I am, but I think I like girls. And even that, like, I had some friends of being like, are you?
Like telling you, like, as if they know you more than you.
Well, that's the thing. Yeah, everybody thinks they know the best, right? Mm-hmm. Everybody's got some knowledge. And I think that's why I spent so long, like, learning everything I could.
Yeah.
To eventually start my business. But at the time, I wasn't doing a business. I was just doing it because nobody told me and I wanted to know. And
sure. Today's episode of Sex Talk Radio is sponsored by the HUD app. HUD offers an alternative approach to commitment-free dating and is geared towards supporting women in exploring their sexuality and intimacy in a safe way through conversations around consent, healthy communication, and boundary setting. HUD was the first to roll out safety features like auto blur photos and video chat capabilities. I've been using the app for a little while now, and personally, my favorite feature is the bedroom feature, where I can see a glimpse into somebody's bedroom desires. So, for example, it will literally say Thea's bedroom, and then BDSM, bondage, dirty talk, impact play, etc., which makes it that much easier to assess your sexual compatibility with someone. HUD is really future forward in how they're evolving their app, and I'm excited to continue using it for casual dating. Go to hudapp.com/sextalk, that's hudapp.com/SEGGS talk for a week on me. A quick note, the HUD app is available for both iOS and Android and is available to users over 18.
There was a ton of shame around being not a lesbian and not straight, and it was super invalidating. And when I finally found the term pansexual, I think I was 23. And I just I had never felt so home. I read it. I heard it and I was like, what is that? And then I Googled it.
Which is attracted to anybody regardless of gender?
Yeah. Or? It just attracted to people regardless of gender. So it's very similar to bisexuality, but it's just regardless of the gender. And because I'd always been like, oh, I think I'm just bisexual. But I'm like, yeah, but I don't I don't know. I just couldn't figure out why about that. Yeah.
It's just it's more of the person.
Yeah. And I mean, when I first heard pansexual, it was actually about people in the LGBT who are bisexual were actually like, oh, we don't like this term because it's erasing us, or it's invalidating.
It's erasing non-binary people.
Well, it's because people thought that pansexuality was saying that bisexual means two genders and that bisexual is erasing non-binary, which isn't true. Bisexual means two or more genders.
Gotcha.
And so they're very similar, just one is a little different. And I just felt like I was a little different.
Yeah.
So when I read it, I was just like, that's me. And I remember feeling so cool about it. And then a few months later was Pansexual Visibility Day. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to tell everybody.
Oh, yeah. We love this post.
I'm just going to tell everybody. So my sister and I, we got a pansexual pride flag. We went out in San Diego where we used to live, and she just took a whole photo shoot with me on her iPhone.
So you moved from Florida to San Diego?
Yeah. So I moved from Florida back to San Diego. And we just did this whole photo shoot. And I had no idea I was going to become a queer coach. I just wanted to be known and wanted to after finally figuring out who I am, I wanted to yell it from the rooftops. I had never felt so much validity finding a label.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I think that's really brave though, because like you said, you made a light bulb click of people often announce or not announce, but disclose through photos a shift in their sexuality or they come out through photos of now I'm in a relationship with so-and-so.
Yeah.
That really is an interesting thing that I've never thought about. And so I love that it wasn't about a relationship or another person for you, because this is who I am and I want to show up for other people as well.
When you spend all of your conformative years shoving who you are so down inside that you don't know, once you finally get to meet that person and come home to yourself.
That's beautiful.
you want to tell everybody. And that was when I first like colored my hair, and it was like silver or it was like lilac or something. And I was getting tattoos and I was wearing bright colors, and I was finally realizing like, yeah, like I can actually, I'm an adult. Like it's my body. I can do whatever I want to it. I can look however I want.
To become 18.
Right.
Like,
it was so cool. And so I posted this big, long post, as a lot of people do, of just like, hey, like happy Pansexual Awareness Day. And I wrote like what it means to find a label and what a label, how that equates to freedom for me and my interpretation of it all. And then I included like the definition of pansexuality, and it was super freeing. It was a really scary day. I remember my sister, there's this song from Prom there's this movie Prom. It's not very good, but it is, it's a story about a lesbian in high school who like the prom committee like took away their prom because she wanted to take a female date.
Oh gosh, so that shit happens.
Yeah. It's not a great movie. It's got a great message.
Noted.
But the song, when she finally like takes back her power, is really pretty.
Yeah,
because she's talking about how she just like, I just want to love, and my heart's actually like the best part of me. My sister Cassidy played that song like 20 times that day. Like just would not stop playing it, and it was the best thing ever.
There's something freeing about putting it on the gram. I mean, I haven't come like,
you're like, well, the world
like
knows
that, but like coming out about this podcast, I mean, I was like pacing around my whole ass house that day, because it's something about like being seen, but then also like, you know, that the people that are observing you are all of a sudden smashing their beliefs of what they made up about you. Yeah. Like I'd posted some like sexy pictures, but nobody knew I was like doing crazy kinky shit and like wanting to share it with the world. And it's like,
and you can't control it anymore. That's what I've liked from me. Like
what do you mean? Can't control other people's image
narrative.
Of you?
Yeah. Like once it's out there, it's out there. Yeah. And coming from my small town, I was like, all the people who follow me from my small town are gonna be like, well, you dated men all through, you know what I mean? But like, it was actually super cool. So I had a lot of people from my high school class like reach out and be like, good for you. Like, we love to see it. And but for me, it was a really big control thing, because when I didn't announce it, I controlled who knew, and I controlled the narrative. And so it was only my friends and my family.
And people's perception.
Like I came out to my sister Cassidy and my mom like a year and a half before that. Yeah. And so like I liked it because it was small, and then
safe.
But I also knew that like by doing that, I could maybe somehow support somebody else who's like, I think I might not be a lesbian, but I also like women, and
change a life or fucking save a life. Too.
Yeah.
I mean,
and I never knew I had the power to do that, to like inspire or like support somebody else on their journey.
Big time. I mean,
and then when I realized I could, I was like, oh,
yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah. And I mean, just people finding people like us and them knowing that other people are out there, them not feeling alone can truly save people's lives. Like the stats, you might know some of them, but like suicide rates in the LGBTQIA and lesbian community are very high, especially among like young teens. And I mean, while I don't know like the rules about if teenagers should be listening to my podcast, they can also just go Google porn too. So I also want them to have this as a resource.
I honestly think teenagers should listen to your podcast, because that's where years of shame and trauma and all that's come from, is not knowing. And when it's like, I didn't even have the regular birds and bees talk when I was younger. So I didn't know anything about sex ever, because it was like a shameful topic to talk about. Yeah. And so when I went into college and was sexually assaulted, I was like, oh, so that's what it is, because nobody ever taught me. And if I would have had the resources when I was younger to learn about it, which is why like sex for me was really hard to talk about and coach about when I first started my business. And then I realized like,
when you started coaching people about it,
but I was like, but it's needed, right? Like if you look at you remember when I first, as my old business coach, when I first made that one TikTok that's like just talking about lesbian sex a little bit. Yeah. Like wasn't even talking about anything in depth, but I was like, oh my God, like I'm going to post this. And it was just like this visceral reaction. But like at the same time, like that's the TikTok of mine that did the best, because
I mean, I think
people don't know.
Those are those crazy fucking life moments. Like I actually remember your girlfriend, Jennifer, was my coach in a program, and I was like shaking on the phone talking to her before I ever posted my first kink and sex TikTok. And looking back on it, it wasn't anything crazy. It was maybe me like mentioning or hinting that I'm submissive or like something like, but it was such, looking back on it though, and I think she coached me through it, like it's not just because it feels a little uncomfortable and maybe like you're unsure. even though it wasn't like a fuck yes, I'm just going to do it, it was still something I needed to do and explore. Like it was, just because it was uncomfortable doesn't mean I shouldn't have done it. And I needed some help there because it was like, whoa, my identity's been business coach, good girl. And then now I'm like talking about kink on TikTok, and it's like, it was really uncomfortable.
It's really crazy to think about, like, growing up with the things we do now, like that being stigmatized and not really talked about is why we don't talk about it as adults. But us not talking about it as adults is why a newer generation of people won't talk about it and are shameful about it. So by people speaking up now and like changing the waves and doing the uncomfortable things is how the next generation is like, oh, it's actually okay for me to just be me.
For people that want to have kids, then it's their kids hear different narratives and all of this stuff. Like it's Some
people are really opinionated on how they raise their kids, and like you know, I've been told before by family members to not bring my girlfriend home yet because they haven't told their kids yet that gay people exist. And
oh dear,
it's just like, it's hard because it's like, well, it's your child, you can raise it how you want. And like,
are they religious?
Your child, a little bit, yeah. And your child also has TikTok, right? Like they're gonna learn exactly
so much
who I
more
am.
than you think they know,
also,
honey. It's
just funny because like there's the whole JoJo Siwa thing. Like, your child knows what a gay person is. Like, they just do.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I think just by like, because we can't control how parents raise their kids, but we can control if there's resources out there for kids who want to know more.
Right.
And I think that's a really big thing right now.
Yeah. So you felt really free posting, sharing.
Yeah.
Did people start sliding into your DMs that were closeted?
I had a few. Yeah. My first ever client was actually somebody I went to high school with, which was crazy to me. But I had a ton of people, especially on TikTok. When I started creating TikToks, I had a ton of people I didn't know, but like, it was really cool because on Instagram, when I posted, like all the people were reaching out to me that I did know were people I barely knew. So it was really cool that they felt comfortable enough to say like, oh, I think I'm also pansexual or anything like that. Yeah. But it was cool. So that's why that was when I started learning every like label you could possibly have, like omnisexual and all. Yeah.
Don't let them overwhelm you.
Like all of the things, just so I could like support as a resource. I was like, oh, if I couldn't find resources, I'll just become one.
Definitely.
And that's what led me into building my queer coaching program. Cause I was like, I would have loved to have me when I was learning it. And that's why when we created my avatar originally, I was like, oh, it's me when I was younger.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a great fuel for building any business or project, is like creating something that you would have loved. I mean, people will ask me like, well, have you like tested the market or like done your research? And like all the businesses that I've built have been like something that I would want to consume. And maybe it's egotistical to think that my opinion is like enough to build something. But like, I know what I would have wanted. I would have wanted a podcast like this.
Why test it if you could just launch it?
Like, fucking launch it.
If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't work.
Yeah. And you don't know until you get messy and figure it out. What are some of the main themes that you work with clients that you see with people that are coming out or bisexual?
Well, weirdly enough, I assumed, so I wanted to be sure that I wasn't a coming out coach. I remember talking to you about that. Because everybody's at somewhere in their journey, and not a lot of people.
That's a specific place.
Not a lot of people want to come out, right? Like a lot of people don't, and they just want to feel. And I also don't think some people should come out yet.
Totally.
Like a lot of people come out when they haven't fully learned what like loving themselves means or accepting themselves means. And so they come out searching for this validation of other people, and they don't get it a lot of times. Like
hoping to find the right community that will come to them. And
so imagine like being somebody younger, realizing you're gay, telling your parents, them not accepting you.
Telling you it's bad.
And you
shut down.
You haven't done the work to like fully love and accept that part of yourself yet, because there's a lot of internalized homophobia.
Yeah.
Like I help those people because the biggest step to coming out is coming out to yourself and fully loving and appreciating yourself first.
Damn.
So, well, that's
mic drop.
Books about.
Yeah. No, I mean, it really like, okay, wow. Come out to yourself first. That's big.
Yeah. Well, it's also like something that's not just for gay people. Like if you think about it, coming out to yourself means just seeing the parts of you that you probably don't like too much. And I mean, there's always going to be parts of yourself that you're like, you can't, I'm not here spreading like toxic like self-love, right?
Totally.
But doing the work to accept it and know that it's a part of you and a part of your story and a part of your journey.
Yeah.
Like I have scars from when I used to self-harm and I hate them and I love them because that version of me was not super strong, but was strong enough to live and brought me here to this version of me. And it doesn't exist without the other.
Yeah.
So I think it goes back to like coming out, right? Like I've never met somebody with more shame than people struggling with their sexuality. Which to the people who think it's a choice and think it's a sin, like I promise you, like they wish it wasn't a choice.
Yeah.
A lot of the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah.
That's beautiful. And yeah, I mean, I never want to take away the term coming out from queer people, but I feel like I've had similar journeys with like coming out as kinky. And like also I would say that I'm somewhat hetero flexible, but I'm really nervous to explore that part of myself because I have a lot of internalized homophobia from my mom coming out when I had no idea she was queer in high school, and all of the shame that it brought up, the judgment that other people in high school had about my mom, like that shit is fucking deep.
Yeah.
And before I think that there's some part of me that's like, oh, I need to explore it now. Like I'm kinky and I'm single. Like I need to explore it now. But I think it is like, I need to come out to myself a bit more about it first.
Yeah. And I mean,
yeah,
like I've told you, I kind of just jumped in and was like, oh, cool.
Right.
But I, I'm very blessed to have a very, very loving family. Like when I came out, they were all open arms, just wanted me to be happy.
Except for extended family.
Some extended family struggled. But the ones that mattered.
Yeah.
Both my sisters and my parents, and obviously, but
the people that really struggle are like, or not saying you didn't struggle, but the people that with the coming out part are like, if they get an initial reaction from a family member that is, you're wrong, you're shameful, you're bad because of this thing, somebody is going to, which you were told in high school by like your peers, then you shove that shit down
where
for
most
years.
of my shame came from.
Yeah.
Like it was crazy because I never really had the reaction from my family that did it.
Society
but
will fucking
I
do
was
it.
like when I called my dad to come out to him, I kind of just talked for like half an hour. We were on FaceTime and he was like, I was like, okay. And he goes, can I talk now? And I let him, and he was just like, you know what? I just want you to be happy. Like he's like, that's all I've ever wanted for you and your sisters. And then I was like, are you sure? Like I was like expecting the shoe to drop.
Yeah.
Like I truly was. And I think it's just because I had so much internalized homophobia about myself. I was like, no, this isn't like, I don't feel right. Like all of that. But it's when I did the work to fully love and accept it. And like, like I didn't ask to be like this. And like,
sure,
it makes my life fucking beautiful. Like it's very, very vivid. And that's what I tell to people when they're feeling all of that shame and not knowing where to start is like, you moving your foot 2 inches forward is a first step.
Yeah.
Some people dive off, but some people don't. And like any step's a step.
Mm-hmm. So when people come to work with you, it's like shame is a big thing that they're navigating. Do they really feel like they want to fit into, like, what are some of the other things they're struggling with? Finding community, labels?
Weirdly enough, my first ever client was somebody who had been out longer than I have. And so I was like, oh, how do I support you?
Yeah.
But they had been out really long, but it was so shameful. And they were getting ready for a wedding with their partner. And their dad was
attending a wedding or their wedding?
No, their wedding. Oof. Like them and their partner were getting married.
Wow.
And apparently her dad had still not accepted her partner and like still made comments and still all this stuff. So
he doesn't get invited to the wedding.
So he was invited. Okay. She wanted him to walk down the aisle with her. And at some point in our coaching, we got to this point where she's like, fuck it, I'm uninviting him. And like, wow. I was like, are you sure? Like because I never flat out told her to, but I just, you pull from what is within and what she really wanted. And I ended up facilitating and I grounded her, and then I was on the line while she uninvited her dad to her wedding. Wow. And
did he know you were there?
No.
You were just holding space.
I was just holding space. Yeah. I was kind of texting her and supporting her a bit throughout the conversation, and it was really, really powerful.
For her.
Yeah, and like she got married and her dad wasn't there. And you know what? She grieved on it, We had a whole like cord cutting, like whole process about it. And at the end of the day, like the memory she said she made, like how beautiful it was.
Right.
Her mom was there. Like
there could have been a lot if he had come. There could have been a lot of anxiety and even like trying to keep him safe from kissing or like, you know, whatever. There could be all these things.
And
intimacy.
It was her wedding day. And like she literally was so grateful that she just got to focus on the love of her life. And like that was so weird to me because I was like my first ever client and I was expecting somebody to be like, I think I might be gay. Like, and it was like, no, I'm literally getting married to a woman next month or like in 2 months. And this is where I'm at. And so that was really cool. But besides that, like I want to say like 88% to 90% of people I've worked with are like full of shame and like we're releasing that and working on self-love and acceptance. But I've supported people actually coming out. I've supported people asking somebody on a date. I've supported somebody like it's been a lot of little small things. Yeah. And like there's no one way to do it right. Like there's no one way to be gay, to be queer, to experience this lifestyle. Yeah. Like it's a really cool community once you really get in there.
And I think the thing about coaching and therapy, it's like I'm somebody that loves like results and instant gratification. Up until I discovered Mochi Melt, I felt like buying lube was an embarrassing thing. I would get it from Target, put it in my little bag and hide it. It also was just like not very presentable. I didn't want it on my bedside table. And when I found Mochi Melt, it just really changed my perception of lube in general. And I've honestly been using it in a lot more of my sexual experiences lately because it's just so different. Silky and smooth. It tastes delicious, it smells delicious, and it really elevates a sexual experience. I think that there are a lot of misconceptions about lube, and I honestly find that it enhances most sexual experiences. My favorite flavor of Mochi Melt is honeydew, and honestly, like you could eat it. It is so good. So go to mochimelt.com and use code THEA, THEA, for 15% off of your order, and I look forward to hearing your thoughts. If you know me and you watch the podcast, you know that I like watching porn for my self-pleasure rituals. One of my favorite websites to go to is xoafterglow.com. What I have found with mainstream porn is that a lot of it is created for the male gaze. It's a lot about the man's pleasure, and it just doesn't feel super authentic and connected. What I really love about Afterglow is that it is for everyone, and it is founded by a woman. I've actually had the pleasure of working with her here in Austin, and I love their mission. You can also find educational porn on their website called EduPorn, and there is just so much to learn and watch there. So go to xoafterglow.com and use code XOTHEA. Important to remind people, like with therapy and coaching, is like it is a long fucking process, and it's like when it comes to somebody's sexuality, there aren't going to be these big quick changes. So even how you were saying you supported this client for multiple months to uninvite her father to a wedding. Like those can be such big fucking life defining moments for people.
Yeah.
So I think just to have like patience with that.
Yeah. And I think like the patience really goes back into like the self-acceptance. Like everything comes back to that for me personally. And like I'm writing a post on it right now and it'll be out by the time this is out. But it's just about how like, you know the quote that's like, we can't shame ourselves into change. We can only love ourselves into evolution. I hate that quote. Because like it's so true. No, it's so true. And it's so annoying when you're like in that like, because like I literally this past week I had something happen where like I was sobbing for like a full day. So much shame. And I'm like, I thought I got past this. Like I've worked so hard to not feel shame.
You're
and like
mad that you were upset.
And then I freaking saw that quote and I was like,
yeah.
Like, leave me alone. Like, I get it. And it's still work. It's still a choice. Like loving yourself, not having shame, forgiveness, any of those things, like none of them are a switch. It'd be really cool if it was all a switch, but it's a choice to every day.
Yeah, we definitely can't shame ourselves into change. Like
we can try. It won't work.
Yeah. And I mean, I've like most women have struggled with body image stuff. And it's like, I find that when I get into that cycle of like deprivation with food or like this shamey thing, that's never when anything shifts for me, mental health or physical health. Yeah. And it's like, it's gotta be from a place of love. And like for 2024, I'm really committed to trying to shift my relationship with my body from that place of love and like nutrition instead of shame, because there's no shift there.
That's literally why I opened up my coaching to non-queer people, because there's a lot of shame in the LGBTQ of like, if you could shame yourself into change, I'm sure a lot of queer people would.
Yeah.
Because it would be a lot easier of a life. And like, it's not. And I remember coaching somebody in a leadership program, and I was like, it was like an older straight dad. Like he like, it was so funny. And I remember using an exact process I've used with my clients before. And it literally like woke him up, and he was like, I've just spent 6 years like living this way. And I'm like getting emotional talking about it. And I was like, fuck, why is this not like, why do so many people hold so much shame? And that's when I realized I should open up my coaching, which I have. And like,
I love that.
It's crazy to think that like something that started specifically for queer people is also something that straight people need. And like everybody in the world, like everybody's just,
shame can
looking
really rule
for
our
a place.
lives.
Yeah. But that's the thing with humans. Like, that's why when we talked about my RA, I'm like, oh, he was doing the best he can with what he had. Because like everybody on this earth is really just doing the best they can. Yeah. And they're all shameful about something. Nobody's good enough to what they wanted to be. And
on
that,
some
whether that be straight, whatever.
Like on some biological level, I'm sure that shame is some ancient fucking coping mechanism, some survival shit, like keeping us really hyper vigilant or like aware or like critical. Like those are things that back in the day probably were beneficial for us to stay alive. Yeah. And now they get channeled into modern life, and they're brutal.
Yeah, I know it's been effective in the past, right? Like I know our generation is like waking up to it and like causing some big waves, especially with like personal development and like all of that stuff that our parents didn't have. No. Like I'm sure my mom was a badass. Yeah. Whenever I talk about my mom, like she was an associate warden at a men's prison. Oh, like she was a badass. And I'm like, you know, that she had so much shame in her body probably for that. And like being in that industry and like trying to be like prove herself as a woman. I just like thinking about that scenario with anybody in their life with any challenge ever, and it's just crazy to think about.
Yeah. Wow. So let's talk about sex.
Okay.
I feel like I've had some
sex talk podcast.
Yeah, sorry. I feel like I had some fun conversations with you about like, I don't know, kinky sex, strap-ons, all sorts of fun shit. I don't know. But I was at such a place where I was like, I'm my good girl. I was in my good girl submissive era. I said, you're going to buy me a good girl sign. And I'm super fucking switchy, I've learned. And it's so fun.
Switch life is the best life.
It's so fun. Like, I've been playing with the submissive guy. And then like last night I was like, I need to get like fucked. So like I went to a different guy. I'm like the best of both worlds. But there is something that is so cathartic and healing about like exploring both. And what I've been realizing and unpacking is that like the patriarchy kind of made me think that I was submissive and would put me in that kind of fawning state if I was in a sexual act with a man that was like bigger and stronger than me. It's just like this like safety thing and this like wanting to please them. And honestly, being more switchy and dominant has like, I feel like I've taken that power back. It's fucking dope.
I think, I think most people are switches, if not should be switches.
Totally.
And I get... Your intern nodded at me. She goes, yeah. And like, I get it. I get it a lot. Like, there's a lot of women who, when they first start getting into kink and stuff, they're like, oh, I can be submissive and not, and like, I don't have to surrender. Yeah. Especially like,
get you in unsafe situations.
Like more like, I don't want to say masculine, but like more dominant women, right? Like people who have their own businesses, who are coach. And I
was super dominant, and so I thought the submissive felt really just like surrender relief. But I was doing it with people I didn't know or trust, so it's like not, no bueno.
It's sometimes also easier to do that, but
sure.
I don't know. I would say I'm also a switch, but I'm a bit more on the dominant side, and then Jennifer's also a switch, but she's a bit more on the submissive side, which kind of works out really well. But there's some days where I'm like, baby, like take over. And it's awesome. It's
two switches together is really fun.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is I don't think I ever was with a man who was a switch. I was either with a submissive or a dominant man.
Interesting.
But there are, I mean, I've spoken to some on like field and other things, but never been physically with one.
Yeah.
Oh, but I've been with a lot of female switches.
You'd never played with but you've played with a submissive guy before,
right?
Yeah.
A little bit.
Was that fun?
Yeah. No, it definitely was fun. I used to love dating men who this is gonna sound so bad, who I thought I could like walk all over. Like I loved that because I was always told that you should date like the opposite of you. And I was like big and loud and like, especially in my early 20s, I was like confrontational and like all the things. And so I was like, oh, I need to date like soft men. And so I would date like softer, feminine, submissive men,
sweeties.
Which I loved. Yeah, I totally loved. But it was also kind of like you being submissive. Like it was fun and you loved it at the time. And then you grew and you're like, I think I like bigger things now, like more broad stuff.
Yeah. And you energetically want to be with somebody that like, the walking over isn't happening.
But yeah, I mean, my first taste to any like BDSM or kink was with a man who was more submissive. That
was your first time exploring like any kink or BDSM?
Yeah, I would say it was the first man since I was sexually assaulted that I felt super comfortable with. And we're still like friends today. He's awesome.
Yeah, I can find it to be really healing. Like just power dynamics in general, because you get to explore these parts of yourself. And for me, exploring being more dominant has felt really, at first I was really nervous to like send the dominant text, or like I started doing it virtually more before in real life. And it's like, I was nervous to fuck it up because you're like holding this kind of special space for somebody. Yeah. And, but yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, I don't really think there are many ways to fuck it up. I don't know, in my experience as a woman, like men are like, oh, like, okay, cool.
Yeah. I mean, consent, conversation, totally. All the things.
All the good things.
Subspace is real though. Like the guy that I played with, like he's super fucking subby if he's turned on. And it's like, I got to check in throughout the experience to like make sure he's doing good and still in his zone.
And I also think you've learned from being submissive at first, you definitely learned what you liked, what you didn't like, and what worked and what didn't work with dominant men. Yeah. Like some kind of times men are dominant and you're like, no.
It's about intention. I mean, I think that's something that I've learned is it is 100% like, is the intention some type of like anger towards women or like energetic like rant towards women? Because I've had that experience with guys. Whereas a real dom is going to be a mutually enjoyable experience.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And I've always loved BDSM in relationships. I was never like a field or like, I was never super comfortable with that, but first experiencing it with a man I was in a relationship with, right? So like that was nice to have one person to feel safe with and fall into. Yeah. And, after we were done, like he was so great with aftercare and so soft and sweet. And now in my partnership with Jennifer, like just again, I've told you about her before, like I've never felt safer with somebody. And so like building our sex life together, it's just like
collaborative.
It's only gone up. Yeah. And it's crazy because we've been dating for a little over a year, but we've been having sex for a little bit more than that. But it's just been awesome to like the closer we get energetically and passionately and intimacy, the better the sex has been getting.
I think as a very single person who wants a relationship, it's really nice to hear that because the like media narrative is often that like, the honeymoon phase is short and then it dries up and then it's like, it's drops off. Yeah. And I think that frequency is not fucking important at all at the end of the day, truly with sex, but the closeness and the intentionality around it is important. Yeah. And I mean, I love thinking about like being with somebody long term and being able to like go to the sex store together or like get really curious and like share those more like taboo or extreme kinks where you're just like, I could not do this with anybody in a newer relationship.
It's been super, super fun with Jennifer because I was actually the first woman she'd ever been with. Wow. And so I got to teach her everything.
Teaching's
and
fun.
Like it's so fun.
Like I see this corrupting a little bit too. A little naughty.
You're right. It's just so funny because I've only really taught her the way I like to be loved because
how lucky for you.
Right, exactly. I like literally had a blank canvas.
Oh my God. So fun.
And it's insane. Like we literally would go when we got like our strap on together, like we went to the store together and I was like teaching her which ones they were. Yeah. And like
I actually
was
need
like
some coaching around that.
Yeah. I got you. But it was just like so fun because I had strap-ons and like sex toys from female partners before. And I was very intentionally like didn't want to bring them into my relationship. So I got rid of all of them. And it was so much more fun to go pick it out with her because if you've met my partner, like she's so curious about everything. And she's like the most animated person. She was just like, Like, what is this?
And
like,
she'll be making sex jokes about it forever.
Yeah, forever. And she was like a kid in a candy store. It was so funny. That's a really weird comparison to make, but
yeah, sorry. It's okay, but wait, really quick
so
strap-on question, because I was like looking at them the other night, and like there's like you've got to have like a harness, and then does any dildo go in a like fit in that little? There's like a hole in the strap-on harness.
Yeah, I don't think it's any dildo. There's definitely specific ones because a lot of dildos have like suction cups in the bottom.
Yeah, mine does.
Which are great for like where you put a suction cup, but I wouldn't put that in the thingy.
Oh, okay.
I would, because there's specific ones you can buy that are like flat.
Okay, so you want to get a specific dildo, and then you want to get a harness.
There's like beginner harness thing.
That's what they looked like.
Yeah, there are some beginner sets that have both included, and that might be supportive. If you go to a sex store, look for those.
Supportive,
because that's what I got for Jennifer's. Yeah, no problem. And we never really moved up size either, because we're two little girls. We're not super big into penetration.
That's funny.
I am dating somebody who went 34 years in the closet though. So.
Oh man. Yeah, I don't know if I'll ever peg someone. We'll see. TBD. There.
I thought I would one day. I dated this guy who loved butt stuff, and I was like always trying. And got so close, and we never did.
This guy on my Patreon asked me, because I have allow people to send me questions, and he was like, it was kind of this internalized homophobia thing. It was like, I'm a little nervous because like I really like how a vibrator feels near like my butt when my girlfriend puts one there. And it was almost insinuating like, does that make me not straight? Does that make, and I'm just like, honey, like,
I promise you, if a girl's fucking your ass, you are straight. Like, if it is a girl behind you, you are straight.
This was literally just like vibrator near butthole. Like that's all it was. And it's like, that doesn't mean anything. It means that you like the pleasure where there's massive pleasure points. Like, I think men should be doing way more butt stuff.
Way more butt stuff.
A lot.
Men, if you're listening, do more butt stuff.
It's kind of like the equivalent of like our G-spot, which feels fucking great, is in their butt. So like, why are we not? There should be more. But I think that there is so much internalized homophobia. Yeah. Especially for men, for bi men, for, I might be what if I'm a little gay because I like a finger in my ass. Like that, those are not related. If you want a dick in your ass, then you're not straight.
The ass itself shouldn't be equated to that. It's just, it's so weird to me, because I'm like, I'm sorry, but if there's a really hot woman and she's fingering your ass while she's sucking you off, I promise you are straight. Like, I promise.
Yeah. Or you're not
yeah.
fully gay.
You like women. Like, I promise. But it's just so interesting, because like the men who are so worried about that, I'm like, bro, you could have so much pleasure if you just like let yourself.
Totally.
There's a lot of shame on it.
Thing that it means that there's something else. And
those men have grown up with their uncles and cousins and
calling them bad names.
Talking about gay people and talking about like all the slurs in the world. And it just, I've met men before who love getting pegged, who love fingers in their ass, who love vibrators in their ass, who love getting their ass ate, and they're like, they're so happy about it. And I'm like, I can't, I don't know what it feels like. And I'm so happy for you.
Just lean in.
Just go ask her to peg you. I promise you she'll love it.
I mean, it's like where there are pleasure points we should explore. I think it's very fascinating that we have certain spots in our body that are literally just created for pleasure, nothing else. Let's explore them.
Yeah. Well, if God didn't want gay men to exist, why would he put their G-spot in their asshole?
I would love to hear a bit about how you've like explored body positivity and what that's looked like with your sex life, just being a bigger bodied person.
Yeah. So I wasn't always a super bigger body person. I was always thicker, right? Like I played basketball and a lot of other sports in high school, and I was always larger, like thighs, hips, butt area. And as I went through college and like quit playing sports, I just started gaining weight from there. And I've actually worked a lot on my relationship with food, and it's like phenomenal right now. I'm working with a health coach who has me counting macros, which I thought I was going to fucking hate. But the way she approached it and like worked with me on it, it's been really, really beautiful. So it's been really fun. But it wholeheartedly affected my sex life. Like, especially this past year, 2023, I didn't realize I didn't realize how big I had gotten, and I refused. I'd moved so many times, and I was like, oh, my scale's in a box. I don't want to find it.
I mean, scales aren't the best.
Yeah, they're not. And
healthy.
Then I went to the doctor, and I had to get on a scale, and I was I went to the doctor, and I had to get on a scale, and I looked at it, and I was like, that's bigger than I ever thought I would be. And it hit me that I wanted to, you know, take care of it, and not in a way of like, I need to be this way or I need to be this size, but I just wanted to feel healthy and happy. And a really big thing for me is I love clothes and I love shopping and I love layering and putting together outfits. And something I stopped doing as I gained weight was that, because it's really hard to shop for, first of all, somebody who's plus size, somebody who's young. I always find plus size for like older women, but never
like fugglier styles.
Yeah, like Torrid, Lane Bryant. But I never found it for my age people. And I used to love to go thrifting, and I don't really go thrifting anymore because it's really hard to find plus size.
Yeah. I see you as somebody that's extremely confident in your body.
I've faked it until I made it a lot of my life. I truly just didn't realize how big I got until like, I want to say like 4 or 5 months ago. Then I've always been confident. I've always like expressed myself with how I looked.
Sure.
A lot of it came from when I lost my hair. And I say lost, I
shaved.
Yeah, I shaved it. So I always had like silver or purple hair or something fun. I was letting Jennifer do my roots one day, January 2023.
I see an eye roll.
And I was just teaching her to do it, and we took too long, and a big chunk fell out. And so,
oh, that's right. I forgot about
and it was the night before I was coaching a full weekend workshop, and so I went and got it fully shaved. Because what else you're gonna do?
I hear girls saying when they shave their
and
head.
I've always wanted to shave my head, but I just like, it's a big step to do, and I always told myself I would do it when I lost weight and all of that. And so shaving my head, like kind of involuntarily, and also I had burns all over my head for the first couple of days from the bleach, and it was just like a whole traumatic experience.
Yeah.
And so I've been growing out my hair the past. I shaved it a few more times, and I started growing it out, I think, in September.
Yeah.
And just like, it's hard. Like, it's really hard as a bigger person growing out your hair, trying to dress, because I'm trying to look like feminine, but also like a little masculine, but also I have short hair, so I have to dress more feminine than normal. And like, but I'm also like bigger.
Things that I've probably never.
I'm like a bigger person, so it's harder to dress more feminine for me, especially with short hair, because I don't always like how it looks, and then I don't feel as confident if I don't feel like edgy, and like, there's a whole thing.
Wow, yeah.
And so it's been this whole past year, like my body image has really been struggling, like especially with my hair, especially with my weight.
I appreciate you being honest about that.
Yeah, I'm super honest about it, and. Like, it's very human. It's a very human experience, right? Like, I worked so hard on like my relationship to money, and like my relationship to my actual like relationship with Jennifer and my family and my emotional intelligence and all of these things, without looking in the mirror and being like, oh, my relationship to my body is not great. And
but I don't think that actual size or weight or a number is an indication.
No,
of
totally not. I know what it's like to feel healthy, and I realized I wasn't healthy. I didn't feel it. And even in like the physical goal I've been setting, like I didn't ever wanted to do a weight or anything, but my goal was to be able to shop at a normal store again, because that felt better in my body, and that got me excited. Because I love clothes, and I love expressing myself.
It really is a feeling. Like, for me, it's not a number. It is for me, a lot of it is like gut health stuff. So like I should not be eating dairy or gluten, and I eat fucking both, because I'm an emotional eater, and I'm recently sober again after a relapse, and like I'm just going to the comfort. Okay, what's comfort? Well, then what's actually discomfort is more digestive problems and like feeling bloated. And like, for me, it's not a number. It's like feeling fucking good. Yeah. And going to the bathroom normally, like feeling good in my body, feeling good in my clothes, and it's fucking never ending. I mean, like, the societal shit that we take in as women, with so many like modifications and all of these things happening, it's intense. And I think body dysmorphia is really real. Like, I'll say things sometimes to friends or partners, and they'll be like, have you fucking looked like, what are you talking about? Like, whoa, you were literally seeing something different in the mirror than what other people see.
Yeah, it's also what people, first of all, I want to say I'm happy you're sober again. Congratulations. Second, I want to say, when it comes to that, it's hard, because people sometimes don't equate, or they equate weight with like attractiveness. And so I remember when I first started getting weight, and I'm like, oh, I'm getting really fat. And they'd be like, no, you're beautiful. And I'm like, I never said I wasn't. I said I was getting a little chunky. But that's a really big thing that I've noticed, especially being a bigger person.
It's a hard thing to hear.
Yeah, I've worked on it with Jennifer a lot. 'Cause some days I'll be like, oh, I'm just feeling really big today. And she's like, I think you look beautiful. And I was like, I didn't say I didn't think that.
Right.
But I just realized I wanted to stop like putting my life off in a sense. Like I really wanted to plan these trips and I want to go places. And I was like, I will do it when I'm like more comfortable. And I hate
fucking real as a woman. Like I literally think about like, I don't want to go to warm places until I've lost X amount of pounds.
Yeah. And it's really hard when all your friends are getting married in places like Thailand and Mexico. So
I just feel like a lot of women listening, watching are going to relate to that. Like the putting off of things because of our bodies. When
I literally am 26 and I remember being 22 when I started realizing I was gaining weight. And I was like, yeah, I'll just, I have so much time. So like, I'll just do it later.
And suddenly years of your life are being put off.
And then suddenly you and your partner are talking about, the process of having a child as a woman and like how it's a multiple year process because we had to find a donor and all of that stuff. And I was like, shit, if we're planning that now and I haven't been traveling or doing anything I wanted to because I was waiting until I was smaller, like I might be running out of time on that. And so I've been, and that also goes back into like the shame conversation as everything does. Like, how can I fully say that I love myself completely if I'm putting off my life because of my body?
Right. Wow. Powerful. Yeah. Body stuff is hard. I appreciate you sharing all of that. I find myself doing like this weird thing sometimes where I think something that helped me was like sharing more full body pics and like all the curves in my dating app profiles. So people are very clear, like this is the body type you're getting.
Yeah. And I remember feeling like I was catfishing people on sites.
That's how I was
like, I'm
feeling.
not even trying to. I
doing
just gained weight in my face this past year. And before then I'd always been bigger, but I had a skinny face. And so I was always like, I'm hiding it. And I wasn't actually hiding it.
Well, I mean, I was doing something similar intentionally or not unintentionally, whatever. I don't know. But it was like, I wanted to, then it was almost this weird thing when I would start like texting or messaging with somebody of like, do you like curves? Like it was like weirdly seeking validation that people would like my belly or my body type.
And I'd always be like, how tall are you?
To get back at them?
No, because I'm 5'11" or 5'10".
Oh, okay.
So when I used to be on dating apps, especially with men, I'd be like, how tall do you like see your partner being? Or like how, like I try to not ask in the way that men hate because some men really hate being asked how tall they are.
Oh, the short kings.
We love short kings.
But we think about our own image so much more than anybody else does.
We really do. Like literally just in our conversation when I was like saying how much I was struggling with my weight and you were like, I always saw you as super confident. Like nobody else fucking sees it. That's the thing.
Right.
It's so weird.
It's our own unique experience.
Yeah.
And how did gaining weight affect sex for you? Did you make like when I've ebbed and flowed, it's made me nervous. Of sex, to be naked. It's naked. Yeah, being naked is so vulnerable.
I went a while without sex when I was single because of that. And even when I started having sex again, I was pretty insecure about it. And so I'd make sure I was very, very comfortable with the person.
Yeah.
With Jennifer specifically, she's like the most loving person in the world. And she's made it really, really amazing. Every single part of my body that I've ever complained about, she's like... told me how much she loves and that whole thing.
Yeah.
But I mean, still at the same time, like, I believe sometimes I don't want to have sex because I'm not feeling that confident and in my weight. And it was hard for a bit. I know that like there's a statistic that like queer women like in relationship have a lot less sex than other relationships because we don't have the highest sex drive.
Yeah.
But the sex is like way more intimate and longer.
Orgasming.
Like it's like 7 hours instead of like multiple orgasms instead of just like,
And there's no reason
minutes.
Anything should be compared to anything, honestly.
Yeah. Well, it's a thing that was noticed. And I remember talking about it with Jennifer because my baby girl's 10 years older than me and she's at the height of her sexual desire. She's 37. And so that's like, she wants a lot of sex and I'm not at that. And so, especially when I was struggling with my weight, like struggling in that relationship.
Be able to communicate about that.
And we'd find win-wins, right? We're like, luckily dating a woman, there's a lot of sex toys involved. And so some nights like I'm like not confident, I'm not in the mood, but like she is. And I'm like, great, let's pull out the toys. Like,
and watch, play, mutual, whatever.
The cool thing about that kind of sex is like it's not so much like hetero sex where like it's fully penetrating and they're both like very...
Right.
Like a part of it, like it doesn't have to be like that with grooming, and it takes a lot of the pressure off.
Totally.
And so like sometimes I would be like hanging out in my clothes still in like a t-shirt, and I'd just be making sure she feels good and she feels loved.
That's fun.
Yeah.
There's so many alternatives to penetrative sex for couples of every gender.
Yeah,
truly,
there's so many alternatives to like intimacy. A big thing we've worked on in our relationship is for Jennifer, when we first started dating, intimacy to her was sex. And to me, intimacy was very far from sex. And how I described it was kind of like a Venn diagram where there's like intimacy and there's sex and there's an overlap. But they're not actually,
they can be separate.
Yeah, they're separate, and we can have a lot of intimacy in a relationship. And I think that this is the relationship I've had the most amount of intimacy in. While also having sex and it not being the same thing. And so this past year we've worked a lot on like our intimacy, and like again, intimacy,
I love that.
Is like into me, you see, how some people say it like that.
Oh God,
and
cringe,
yeah, it's pretty bad. But like that's truly where we're at in our relationship, where a point of like she sees completely through me and vice versa. But sex also has been great.
So to wrap up, let's talk to the in the closet baby bi, baby queer. I know your faves.
My no babes.
What advice would you give to them?
I would say stop Googling. Stop seeking somebody else to tell you who you are. Stop seeking the validation that you crave.
Wow.
Do some work. And when I say that, I mean like get to know yourself in a way that you haven't before, whether that's meditating, journaling, working with a coach.
Therapy if you can afford it.
Yeah, therapy is a phenomenal tool. And there's a lot of free therapy now online. That's really, really awesome. I have a lot of friends in free therapy. And just like take the time to truly get to know you and your desires and what you want, not from a place of what you think it should look like. Because the label probably already exists, whether you know it or not.
Yeah.
And if you don't want the label,
or not.
you don't need the label. Like not everybody needs it. And like whatever, whoever, however you love is completely valid, whether the world tells you it's not. Whether the world tells you it is or not.
Yeah. And I love what you said about like coming out to yourself first.
Yeah.
Because I've heard about, people in certain situations actually getting outed to other people, by family members.
Yep.
And it's like I think it's, I don't have firsthand experience, but it seems like a very important, sacred decision that the person gets to make for themselves. And so, I think something else that maybe I can get your thoughts on is just how to be a good ally too with friends that are coming out.
Yeah, I've actually talked to one of my friends who's an entrepreneur, has a business, about wanting to create a seminar at their business on how to be better like allies in the workspace, like how to create an environment in the workspace for your LGBTQ, especially the ones you don't know about.
Yeah.
And I think if we had more allies like that, like whether or not I do the workshop for her, like, but that mentality, like that's really what will make people feel more loved and accepted and seen.
Definitely.
Because the reason I do the work I do with the shame is because I can't control the non-LGBTQ, the allies, right? Like we can't control how we're perceived,
right?
But we can control how we love ourselves and show up.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah.
Beautiful. Where can people find you? What's your handle?
My Instagram, I recently changed it.
I remember.
It's just Cole Mckinney, so KOLMCKINNEY. And then I have coachcole.com.
Great.
Where I have an email and all the things. You can reach out, DM me on Instagram. I'm very friendly.
She's the best coach. She'll also kick your ass a little bit, but in a good way.
I do lovingly kick some ass sometimes.
We love
but only when you need it. Only when you need to hear it.
Yeah, we all need to hear it.
Sometimes, yeah.
Thank you, my dear.
Of course. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited. I remember when you first told me about potentially starting a podcast. So it's really cool to be here.
Fuck yeah. All right. Bye. Thank you so much for tuning into Sex Talk Radio. Please connect with us on social media. And if you haven't already, please come join me inside of the Sexy Society. It is an online virtual community for women to connect and explore with each other. We have weekly lives with past podcast guests and so much more. You can also learn more about my adventures and stories on my private Patreon. Go to patreon.com/sexymusings. That is SEGGSY musings.